Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the colonial support ship Intrepid, watching distant stars drift by through scratched plasteel. The ship's ancient engines hummed with a familiar vibration that some called concerning, but she found comforting. After 15 years commanding this vessel, she knew every rattle, every groan, every quirk of the 70-year-old ship. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual on the long-range sensors," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from his station. The young officer had joined her crew when no other posting would take him. The Intrepid wasn't exactly a prestigious assignment. Chen walked over to his station, her boots clicking against the worn deck plates. The sensor display flickered occasionally, another quirk of their aging systems. But what she saw made her breath catch: massive energy signatures, unlike anything in their database, approaching the Orleans colony. "How many contacts?" she asked, leaning closer to the grainy display. "At least 30 distinct signatures, Captain. But these readings, they're not matching any known configurations in our library." Chen nodded slowly. The Intrepid's sensor systems were considered hopelessly outdated by modern standards. They didn't have the sophisticated analysis capabilities of newer ships, but they could detect raw energy outputs just fine. And what they were detecting was enormous. "Send a message to Colonial Command," Chen ordered. "But use the old encrypted channels, not the modern ones." Her communications officer, George Walsh, looked up in surprise. "The old Fibonacci sequence encryption, Captain. Nobody's used that in decades." "Exactly," Chen replied. "Nobody's used it, which means nobody's bothered to crack it. Send the message." The bridge crew worked in focused silence as they compiled their report. The Intrepid was the only military vessel within range of Orleans colony. The nearest response fleet was 3 weeks away at best speed. If these unknown contacts were hostile, they would reach the colony in less than 2 days. "Message sent, Captain," Walsh reported. "But command's ordering all ships in the sector to fall back to defensive positions around the core worlds." Chen's jaw tightened. Orleans colony had nearly 20,000 civilians, farmers, miners, families who'd ventured out to build new lives on the frontier. The Intrepid was their only line of defense, and command was ordering them to abandon these people. "Chief Engineer Patel," Chen called over the ship's comm. "What's the status of those modifications you've been working on?" "Ready for testing, Captain," Patel's voice crackled back. "I've managed to bypass some of the original safety limiters. We can push the old fusion drive about 40% beyond rated capacity now. It won't be pretty, but she'll hold." Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Intrepid might be old, but that meant it was built in an era when ships were over-engineered. Modern vessels were precision instruments, optimized for maximum efficiency. But the Intrepid? It was built like a fortress, with redundant systems and safety margins that engineers of the time had considered excessive. "Plot an intercept course," Chen ordered her helm officer. "We're not abandoning Orleans colony." "But Captain," Rodriguez protested, "command's orders are noted, Lieutenant, but we have 20,000 civilians counting on us. Sometimes the right thing to do isn't the same as following orders." She turned to address her bridge crew. "I won't force any of you to stay. This could be our last stand. Anyone who wants to take the escape pods to the colony, I'll understand." The bridge remained silent for a long moment. Then Walsh spoke up. "With all due respect, Captain, we didn't sign up for the Intrepid because we wanted an easy posting. We're with you." Chen nodded, feeling a surge of pride in her crew. They were considered outcasts by the modern fleet, officers who couldn't cut it on newer ships, who couldn't adapt to the latest technology. But they understood something that command had forgotten. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. "Very well," she said. "Sound battle stations, and get me everything we have on those energy signatures." The Intrepid might be old, but she's got a few tricks left to teach these unknowns about human ingenuity. As klaxons blared throughout the ship, Chen returned to the viewport. The Intrepid had been slated for decommissioning next month. deemed too outdated to be worth maintaining. But Chen knew better. Sometimes the strongest weapons were the ones your enemy never saw coming. And the Intrepid? She was about to show the galaxy why humans never quite got around to scrapping their old warships. Chief Engineer Patel's hands moved across the Intrepid's engine control panel with practiced ease, adjusting systems that most modern engineers would consider archaic. The massive fusion reactor thrummed beneath her feet, its sound different now that she'd removed the original power limiters. The ship felt alive, like a sleeping giant finally stirring. "Engineering to bridge," she called out. "Captain, you need to see this." Captain Chen arrived minutes later, ducking under exposed conduits. The engine room was a maze of machinery that would look completely foreign to most fleet engineers, all analog controls and mechanical interfaces rather than the neural links and quantum processors of modern vessels. "What have you found, Chief?" Patel gestured to several displays showing energy readings. "Remember how I said we could push the reactor 40% beyond specs? That was conservative. These old fusion systems, they're incredible. The safety margins built into them are massive. Modern ships run everything at near maximum efficiency, but the Intrepid? She's been running at half capacity her entire life." Chen studied the readings. "Are you saying we can safely push it further?" "More than that," Patel grinned. "Look at these sensor readings of the unknown contacts. Their energy signatures are incredibly precise. Everything optimized, no waste. But that precision makes them predictable. Our old reactor, it's messy. The energy signature is chaotic, constantly fluctuating. Their targeting systems won't know what to do with us." Understanding dawned on Chen's face. They won't be able to get a clean lock. Exactly. And there's more. Patel led Chen to another station, where Lieutenant Wang was working on the weapons systems. "Show her what you found, Sam." Wang pulled up schematics of the Intrepid's point defense grid. "Our laser arrays are considered primitive by modern standards. They're broad-spectrum, high-energy bursts rather than the precise, focused beams used today. But look at the energy readings from the unknown ships." Chen leaned closer. The unknown vessels appeared to be protected by some kind of energy, shielding that bent space around their hulls, technology far beyond anything humans possessed. "Their shields are tuned to defend against modern weapon frequencies," Wang explained. "They're expecting precision strikes, but our primitive weapons, they're like using a sledgehammer instead of a surgical laser. The shields might not know how to compensate." "How confident are you about this?" Chen asked. "Confident enough that I've been recalibrating our whole weapons grid to be even less precise," Wang answered. "We're going to throw so much unfocused energy at them that something has to get through." Chen nodded slowly, a plan forming in her mind. "What about our hull?" Patel smiled again. "That's the best part. Modern ships use energy shields almost exclusively, but the Intrepid, she's got 2 meters of solid titanium composite armor. They don't make them like this anymore. Too expensive, too heavy. But against energy weapons, sometimes there's no substitute for good old-fashioned metal." "And our communication systems?" Chen asked. "Still using radio waves for backup," Wang chimed in. "Quantum entanglement communication is great until it breaks. Radio might be slow, but it's reliable. And if these unknowns are as advanced as they seem, they might not even think to monitor such primitive frequencies." Chen felt a surge of hope. The Intrepid had been called obsolete, a relic destined for the scrapyard. But now those same outdated systems might be exactly what they needed to survive. "What about our sensor profile?" she asked. "Can we use this to our advantage?" Patel nodded enthusiastically. "Our sensor systems are passive. Mostly, modern ships constantly probe their surroundings with active sensors, but we mainly just listen. It makes us harder to detect. And with the reactor modifications, I can make our energy signature look like background radiation. They might not see us coming until it's too late." Chen straightened up, her decision made. "How long until we can implement these changes?" 4 hours, Paddle replied. Maybe 3 if the whole engineering team pulls together. You have 2, Chen said. The colony is counting on us. And one more thing, if anyone asks, our communications are down. We never received the order to retreat. As Chen headed back to the bridge, she felt the Intrepid's deck plates vibrating beneath her feet. The ship had protected human colonies for 70 years. Now, in what should have been its final days, it would show why humans had learned to never underestimate the value of proven technology. In the darkness of space, the unknown vessels continued their approach, their sophisticated systems scanning for threats. But they were looking for modern warships, for known patterns and signatures. They weren't looking for something as primitive as the Intrepid. And that would be their first mistake. Multiple contacts, closing fast. Lieutenant Rodriguez called out from his sensor station. "There, Captain. They're not what we thought they were." Captain Chen moved to his station, studying the incoming data. The unknown vessels weren't just advanced. They were massive, each one easily dwarfing the Intrepid. Their hulls seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, adapting to space conditions in real time. "Fascinating," Chen muttered. "They've probably never even needed armor. Their technology is so advanced, they rely entirely on active defenses. They're broadcasting," Walsh reported from communications. "It's a demand for surrender. They're calling themselves the Concordiate. Say they've come to uplift humanity to a higher state of existence." Chen's expression hardened. She'd heard similar promises before. Advanced civilizations offering to help less developed ones, usually ending with the less developed civilization being absorbed or subjugated. "Show me the colony defensive grid," she ordered. A holographic display flickered to life, showing Orland's colony's minimal defenses, a few automated turrets, basic shields. Against the Concordiate fleet, they might as well have been throwing rocks. "Chief Patel," Chen called over the comm. "Are those modifications ready?" "Ready as they'll ever be, Captain," Paddle responded. "But I had an idea. Remember those old electronic warfare modules we were supposed to strip out last refit? The ones you conveniently forgot about?" Chen smiled. "What about them?" "They're designed to broadcast false sensor signatures. Modern ships don't use them because they're easy to detect. But combined with our chaotic reactor signature," Chen caught on immediately. "We could appear to be more than one ship." "How many?" "With the power we're pushing through. Maybe 5 or 6 convincing signatures. More if we don't mind them being obvious decoys." "Do it," Chen ordered. "And get ready to implement Schlacht Pattern Delta." Her bridge crew looked at her in surprise. Schlacht Pattern Delta was ancient, developed during humanity's first interstellar conflicts. It was considered too crude and predictable to be useful against modern opponents. "They'll be expecting modern tactical doctrine," Chen explained. "All our strategies for the last 30 years have been based on precision strikes and minimal energy expenditure. But Delta, it's brutal, inelegant, exactly what they won't be prepared for." The crew nodded, understanding dawning on their faces. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways, especially when your enemy had never seen them. "Helm, bring us about," Chen ordered. "Engineering, push that reactor to maximum. Weapons, charge all banks, and I mean all of them. Even the backup arrays we never use. Communications, start broadcasting on all frequencies, maximum power. Let's light up their sensors like a supernova." The Intrepid's engines roared to life, pushing out more power than they had in decades. The ship's ancient electronic warfare systems began broadcasting phantom signatures, making it appear as if multiple vessels were emerging from behind Orland's colony's largest moon. "They're responding," Rodriguez reported. "Their fleet is. They're splitting up, trying to engage multiple targets." "Perfect," Chen smiled. "They've never seen Schlacht Pattern Delta. They don't know that all those signatures are supposed to look fake. The obvious decoys are hiding the fact that some of them are real." The Concordiate fleet spread out, their liquid metal hulls morphing to present optimal firing solutions against multiple targets. Their energy weapons began charging, creating beautiful patterns of light in space. "Now," Chen ordered, "cut all broadcasts, all power to engines. Give me ramming speed." The Intrepid surged forward, its chaotic reactor signature masking its approach. The Concordiate vessels, their sensors still trying to track multiple phantom targets, didn't notice the very real threat heading straight for them until it was too late. "Their shields are optimized for energy weapons," Chen reminded her crew. "They've probably never even considered the possibility of physical impact." 2 meters of titanium composite armor coming right at them. "Let's show them why humans still build ships with physical armor." The first impact was spectacular. The Intrepid's reinforced bow crashed through the liquid metal hull of a Concordiate vessel like a battering ram through glass. The alien ship's sophisticated systems, designed to defend against energy weapons and precision strikes, had no defense against simple kinetic force. "Hard about," Chen ordered. "Target the next one with everything we've got. Full spread, all weapons. Don't worry about accuracy, just fill space with as much energy as possible." The Intrepid's primitive weapon arrays lit up the void, throwing out massive bursts of unfocused energy. The Concordiate ship's adaptive shields, designed to defend against precise attacks, struggled to compensate for the chaotic onslaught. "They're trying to regroup," Rodriguez reported, "but their formation is broken." "They've never, Captain, I don't think they've ever faced an enemy that fights like this." Chen nodded grimly. The Concordiate had clearly evolved their technology along a different path than humanity. They'd pursued elegance and efficiency, while humans had maintained a mix of sophisticated and brute force approaches. Now, faced with humanity's primitive tactics, their advanced technology was proving to be a liability. "Keep pushing," Chen ordered. "Show them why humanity never completely abandons the old ways. Sometimes you need a sledgehammer, not a scalpel." The bridge of the Intrepid shuddered as another Concordiate energy blast dissipated against their hull. Warning lights flashed across every console, but the old ship held together. Captain Chen watched as their unconventional tactics continued to throw the alien fleet into disarray. "Status report," she called out, gripping her chair as the ship executed another evasive maneuver that would have torn a modern vessel apart. "Hull integrity at 68%, Rodriguez reported. "The armor's actually absorbing their energy weapons, Captain. It's not pretty, but that old titanium composite is redistributing the heat faster than they can melt through." "Captain," Walsh's voice carried a note of excitement, "I'm picking up something on the old radio frequencies. It's other ships. Human ships." Chen's eyes widened. "Show me." The tactical display revealed a dozen signatures approaching at high speed. But these weren't modern warships. They were other outdated vessels like the Intrepid, ships that had been relegated to patrol duty in the outer colonies. "They're all running on the old frequencies," Walsh explained. "They picked up our distress call, the one we sent using the Fibonacci encryption. The modern channels are still being jammed by the Concordia, but these old radio waves, they didn't even think to block them," Chen finished, "because who would still be using such primitive technology?" The answer, it turned out, was every other captain who'd been tasked with protecting the outer colonies with outdated ships. Like Chen, they'd all chosen to ignore the retreat order. Now they were converging on Orleans colony, bringing with them 70 years of human engineering and battle tactics that the Concordiate had never encountered. "Engineering to bridge," Paddle's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, I've been analyzing their weapon signatures. Each time they hit us, our sensors record the exact frequency and pattern. They're sophisticated, but they're predictable." Chen nodded. "Their weapons are too perfect, too optimized." "What are you thinking, Chief?" "We've got those old electronic countermeasure pods. They were designed to create false sensor readings, but with some modifications, we could tune them to match the exact frequency of their weapons." Chen leaned forward. You're saying we could reflect their energy weapons back at them? Better than that, Paddle replied. We could amplify them. Their shields are calibrated for precision strikes. If we take their own energy and scatter it back at them as chaotic feedback. Do it, Chen ordered. Lieutenant Wang, help engineering modify those pods. And get me a channel to the other ships. Time to show the Concordiate why humans keep these old vessels around. As Wang worked with engineering, Chen coordinated with the other arriving ships. Each one was considered obsolete by modern standards, but each had been maintained and modified by crews who understood their potential. Together, they formed a fleet that operated unlike anything the Concordiate had encountered in their presumably long history of conquest. Multiple impacts. Rodriguez called out, "The countermeasure pods are working. Their energy weapons are being reflected back at random frequencies. Their shields can't compensate." Chen watched as the first Concordiate ship's liquid metal hull began to destabilize under its own reflected energy. The alien vessel's perfect technology had become its undoing. Unable to handle the chaos of its own weapons thrown back at it in unpredictable patterns. "They're trying to adapt," Walsh reported, "changing their weapon frequencies, but our old systems are actually better at handling variable energy patterns. These analog systems were built to be flexible." Chen nodded. Modern human ships relied on quantum computers and AI systems to manage their energy distributions, but the Intrepid and ships like her, they used hardwired circuits and manual controls. Less efficient, less precise, but infinitely more adaptable. "Concordiate fleet is falling back," Rodriguez announced. "Their formation is broken. Ships showing signs of severe systems failure. Captain, I think we've done it." But Chen knew better than to celebrate too early. "Keep those countermeasures running. Coordinate with the other ships. I want overlapping fields of reflected energy. Don't give them a single vector of retreat that isn't covered by our defenses." The Legacy fleet moved into position around Orleans colony, their outdated systems working in perfect harmony. Each ship's primitive technology complemented the others, creating a defense grid that turned the Concordiate's own advanced weapons against them. "They're broadcasting again," Walsh said, "but not on their usual channels. They're using our old radio frequencies." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Now they're learning. Put it through." The message was brief, a request for cessation of hostilities. The Concordiate fleet, for perhaps the first time in their history, had encountered a problem their advanced technology couldn't solve. They had come expecting to find primitive beings in need of uplifting. Instead, they had found humans, a species that understood that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The Concordiate flagship hung in space before the assembled human fleet, its liquid metal hull no longer flowing smoothly but riddled with crystallization patterns where reflected energy had disrupted its molecular structure. Captain Chen stood on the Intrepid's bridge, watching as the alien vessel made no attempt to flee or fight. They had learned their lesson about underestimating primitive technology. "They're requesting direct communication," Walsh reported, "still using our radio frequencies. They say they want to apologize." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Apologize? Put them through." The voice that came through the bridge speakers was synthetic, clearly a translation system at work. "We have committed a grave error in judgment," the Concordiate representative said. "We assumed that reliance on older technology indicated a failure to advance. We now understand that we were wrong." "A common mistake," Chen replied, "but a dangerous one. Technology isn't just about having the newest innovations. It's about understanding all your tools, old and new, and knowing when to use each one." "Yes," the alien voice agreed. "We have spent thousands of years perfecting our technology, making it more efficient, more precise. But in doing so, we lost something vital: adaptability. We forgot that sometimes the crude solution is the correct one." Chief Patel's voice came over the internal comm. "Captain, you might want to see these readings. They're ships. The damage we did isn't just physical. Their entire technological approach is based on networked quantum systems. When we disrupted their perfect patterns with chaotic energy, we didn't just damage their hulls. We showed them a fundamental flaw in their philosophy. Chen understood. The Concordiat had pursued technological perfection at the cost of resilience. Their ships were marvels of engineering, but they had no backup systems, no redundancies, no alternative methods. They had optimized themselves into a corner. "We wish to learn from you," the Concordiat representative continued, "not to uplift, but to understand. Your species maintains technologies across multiple generations, keeping the valuable aspects of older systems even as you develop new ones. This is true advancement." Around the Intrepid, the other ships of the legacy fleet held position. Each one was scared, outdated, considered obsolete by modern standards. Yet together, they had achieved what an entire modern battle fleet might have failed to do. They had shown an advanced alien civilization the value of technological diversity. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, "Colonial Command is finally getting through. They're demanding a situation report. They're asking." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "They're asking why we disobeyed the retreat order." Chen smiled. "Tell them the Intrepid and her sister ships successfully defended Orleans colony from an alien incursion using outdated but effective tactics and technology. Tell them that sometimes the best way to move forward is to remember what worked in the past. And tell them." She looked around her bridge, at the crew who had chosen to stay when others would have abandoned their post, at the old systems that had proven their worth one final time. "Tell them that they might want to reconsider scrapping these old ships. The Concordiat won't be the last advanced civilization we encounter, and they won't be the last to underestimate us because of our primitive technology." The bridge crew worked in quiet pride as they began compiling their reports. The Intrepid's hull bore new scars. Its systems were strained, but it had proven something important. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in having the newest technology, but in understanding and preserving all of its technological heritage. "The Concordiat fleet is withdrawing," Walsh reported. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies, old and new. They're telling everyone they encounter about humanity, about how we taught them the value of keeping old technology alongside new developments." Chen nodded, satisfied. The Intrepid had been scheduled for decommissioning, deemed too outdated to be worth maintaining. Now it had become a symbol of humanity's unique approach to technological advancement, an approach that recognized that true progress wasn't about discarding the old for the new, but about understanding when each tool was the right one for the job. "Plot a course back to Orleans colony," Chen ordered, "and send a message to Colonial Command. Tell them the Intrepid and her crew respectfully request to remain on frontier patrol duty. After all," she smiled, looking at the now retreating Concordiat fleet, "someone needs to stay out here and remind the galaxy why humans never completely retire our old warships." The Intrepid's engines hummed their familiar tune as the ship turned toward home, its ancient systems still functioning despite everything they'd been through. In the end, it hadn't been about old technology versus new technology. It had been about understanding that sometimes the best solution was the one that had stood the test of time. And in the vast darkness of space, word began to spread among the starfaring races. Beware the humans and their old ships. They might look primitive, they might seem outdated, but in their diversity of technology lay a strength that even the most advanced civilizations had yet to fully comprehend.